Okay guys, so I'm going to get started here. I'm going to try to give you a real quick rundown of the Unit 2 we did, which was on the periodic table and atomic structure. This first little video here is going over atomic structure. So the things we need to remember are the parts of an atom, which were the proton, the neutron, and the electron. So the proton, if we remember, it has a positive charge. And pretty much it has an atomic mass of 1 AMU. Remember, these are all really small. They're much too small to even give it like a gram or a milligram, so it gave its own little unit. We find it in the nucleus. The neutron, it has no charge, or we sometimes wrote like 0 for neutral. It also has a 1 atomic mass unit, and we find it in the nucleus. And then the last thing we have was the electrons, which have a negative charge. We find that on the rings, and pretty much it weighs about 0 AMUs. It's very, very small. Okay, so then we start talking about what does it look like. Well, an atom, and it says like over there on the side. My little setup's kind of messed up, but we got what it was. So we have our nucleus, and this is where you're going to find your protons and neutrons, and then you'll find your electrons on the rings. 2 can go on the first ring, and then we said 8 can go on the second ring. And then for us, we said that we wanted to put all the other orbitals also just to have 8. So we kind of went a 2, 8, 8. Really, it can hold 18 out here, and then you have your 32 and stuff. So for example, if I was going to draw carbon, so carbon is element number 6. It would have 6 protons in the nucleus, and it would have 6 neutrons in the nucleus. It would have 2 electrons, and then it would have 4 more on the next ring. Okay, and we called those electrons that were on the outer ring the valence electrons. Okay, and those are the ones that are going to be used for bonding that we talked about when we got into our next unit, which we'll have another little review section on. All right, so that's the basic there. So then the next thing I wanted to talk about was notation. So when you have your setup where you're either looking in the periodic table or you are looking at the symbol notation that I may give you. If you're looking at the periodic table, we'll go with carbon again since I just talked about it. It would be like this in one of the little boxes on the periodic table. And I'm trying to copy from the one I have, just so that's what my little bit of hesitation there is. So you have your symbol here, and we did a lot of these where we had like not exit tickets, well, some exit tickets, but catalysts and stuff. So we have our symbol, okay, this was the atomic number, down here was your mass number, okay, and of course that was the name. So we talked about that a lot, okay, but then we also had this symbol where whatever like the element might be, when they had a number up here, this was actually the mass number, and down here was your atomic number. So like if I was going to do, once again, carbon, I'm going to keep going back to that one, it would say 12 and it would say 6, okay? So that would be the mass, and this would be the atomic. Okay, so these are all things that we did before, just trying to pull it all back together. Now, one of the things that we need to remember is how we can figure out the different pieces, and so I always told you to remember 8-man. So this was for atomic number is equal to the number of protons, that's an ugly looking R, and which is equal to the number of electrons. And man was for mass number minus atomic number is equal to the number of neutrons. Okay, so you could figure out how many of everything you had, because there are different isotopes of things, and that's the next thing I have. An isotope, you have the same element, but different mass numbers. Which then means you have different number of neutrons. Okay, so with that being said, I could have carbon 12 or I could have carbon 14. Now, they're going to have, for this one, 6 protons, 6 electrons, and then my neutrons here would also be 6. But if I'm talking about carbon 14, I'd have 6 protons, because that's how many atomic number I have, which equals 6 electrons. But this time I would have 8 neutrons, because 14 minus 6 would give me 8. Okay, so that's about isotopes. And the last little thing that was in the unit when we talked about atomic structure, and it wasn't really the next thing we did because we did periodic table next, that was ions. So if you remember, we had our periodic table. We always put like a +1, +2, +3, and then we skip this one. I'm going to have to draw some little lines over here. -3, -2, -1, and then we had this one over here that was nothing. So these are your ions. So remember with something like lithium. Lithium would be sitting here with 3 electrons because it's element number 3. And so this one right here it wants to get rid of. So what it would do is it would donate that. And so then lithium would be sitting with only 2 electrons, and we said it would be a +1. Okay. Or if we had given that one to fluorine, because fluorine, 1, 2, had 7. Well, actually has 9, has 7 valence, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 valence. If it took this one from fluorine, and now it had 8, but that one was new, okay, it'd have 1 more negative, so that would make it a -1, okay, and we could have found fluorine right here in the -1 column, and we would have found lithium over here in the +1 column when you look at your periodic table, okay? But that was just showing you that, and that's going to kind of come back to us in the bonding unit that we'll do a little bit later on in review. But let's just kind of throw that out there, okay? All right, so this is the first little bit, and you'll have an assignment with Discovery Education to go through with this, and then a little quiz is to assess.